My name is Kat Kibben. I run a company called 3 Ears Media, and I am here with one of my very good friends at RecFest. This is Jeremy Roberts. And before I ask Jeremy to do his official introduction, I want to give a friendly introduction because I both respect and admire you for many different reasons and not because we always agree. And that's exactly why I asked you to come here and do this, is because I feel like you earned your PhD in recruiting, truly. You have been a managing editor of a blog all about recruiting, just like I was back in the day, where all you did was talk to smart people about what they did and write about it every single day. You have done the job. You managed a team of 100 sourcers at one of the biggest companies in the world, and you've worked on technology companies that serve those organizations. And so there was no one better to ask to sit down with me for a couple minutes to talk about recruiting and everything else. So with all that said, I could sing your praises all day, but I'll let you do your official intro.
Well, thank you very much. And I want to say, I think I was the first customer of 3 Ears Media long ago.
You were.
She got on stage and announced her company, and we had a need that completely aligned. And so we started working together. So anyway, no, it's great to be here. Always been a fan of Shaker and of you. So I was excited to see the combination. And this is my very first RecFest, and I'm excited to be here for this. So what was the question?
What are you doing right now?
What am I doing right now?
Your 2-minute elevator speech.
Yeah, so right now I am the founding customer success lead for Tenzo, and we do AI agents for recruiting. So AI interview agents via phone or voice, and a lot of other agentic. That's really that's the primary use case that we have. But as you know, most companies now are doing so many different things agentically for our clients as we get to know them and help them solve problems. So
yeah. Before I get into my big question, I've been doing some research into agentic, and what kind of conversations are you having with customers right now? What are kind of the top conversations that are coming up for them, and like what's going wrong or right with using AI?
I think right now there's a lot. I think the word is AI washing. Do you know what I'm saying? Like you'll hear everybody wants AI, and so they're asking about AI, and people are presenting them with AI that really is what they did last year, but there's like a curator or a behind the scenes kind of pushing the buttons for them, as opposed, so I think that there's a lot of, and I also think there's a lot of confusion about AI and the risks, and we don't really know what the risks are. And then there's a lot of baggage that comes from kind of the black box machine learning algorithms of the 2010s, which I was a big part of, helping to develop workflows that had that. So really right now, I think everybody knows the world is changing drastically. We're not really sure what's safe and what's not and what we should be doing, So, and let's be honest, there are a lot of vendors here that are implementing really good AI solutions, but not enough time has passed for most people to see a really valid case study. So you're dealing with a lot of early adopters right now, and then you've got others who are waiting for the headlines.
Yeah.
So,
the line I hear through all of that is fear. And that's not new to our industry. You and I have been writing and talking to people about how scared they are about taking the next step for a really long time. I remember when the fear was, oh, should we have a social media account?
Right.
They were really scared about that. That was a 6-day meeting.
Mobile recruiting.
Oh.
Should we allow people to engage with a job from a phone?
That was a SharePoint WebEx meeting among 6 executives in 6 time zones. And now we're talking about tools that can make decisions. And knowing both the fear through line, but also the opportunity, because I think that's where you sit right now, is the opportunity space where you don't have to think as much about the fear because you're not internal. But if you were internal and you're a talent leader, what are some of the things you're going to be doing to address the fear, but also take advantage of the opportunity?
Yeah, that's a really, really big question to unpack. And so I didn't really talk about my background at all, but so I started as an individual contributor, and then you really gravitated towards, I was in executive search, and then I gravitated towards sourcing and was the editor of SourceCon. So and then I went into tech for about 6 years. Then I went back into leadership, and most recently I led a team of 100 at a large financial institution, right? And so, there are certain industries that are very compliance driven, and obviously because of what they do, they have to be really careful. And so as a TA leader first, I would want to, obviously what kind of company you're in, what kind of risk appetite do those companies have, and really just start trying to chip away at the problem. And I had a team of 100 people all just doing sourcing, right? And without technology, without the compliance concerns, really the job that those 100 people were doing could be done by probably 15. Just kind of knowing the technology that exists, if there were not um so many barriers to getting things approved and automation,
Right.
So I think as a TA leader, you need to recognize that the technology does now exist to technically remove a human. Now we all know you shouldn't.
Not yet.
There are touch points that are human. I think is always going to be valuable in terms of relationships and kind of moving people forward and validating what's going on. I mean, I don't see the human ever being removed. But I think as a TA leader, you have to recognize, some companies are going to move really fast. And then some you've got another 4 or 5 years. And you should be the one leading the charge. You should be experimenting, taking chances, because if you're not, somebody else is going to, and you'll be included. You know,
Yeah.
um, you can either transform or be transformed, is what I think. So
Yeah.
you need to be on the transformative edge, obviously recognizing the concerns of your organization and protecting what's important there.
Yeah. Right.
But that doesn't mean you shouldn't be exploring. Don't put your head down and hide from it.
100%. I think focusing on the problem, right? You touched on this, is this idea of focusing on the most prevalent issue that's costing you money, time, or some other resource that is
Mhm.
limited, right? That you can't just press a button and reproduce. You have to focus on the problem and really deeply understand the problem instead of just throwing solutions at it.
Yeah.
We've seen this for years, right? You think there's a problem, so we hire at the big companies, we hire Deloitte consultants to come in and give us a 300-page report. And now you're hearing the headlines, the Deloitte consultant used AI to generate their answers. And so I think it comes back to the recruiting leader to be really, really good at defining and communicating problems,
Yeah.
dissecting that problem and listening to their team.
Well, if something you said kind of took me back, I want to go back real quick on what the recruiting leaders should be doing right now. I think one of the really important things to recognize is that for many, many years, we had this workflow. And let's say you're at a large company, you've got sourcers do this, they hand off to the recruiter does this, and they use this tool. And then it just kind of, the process hasn't changed. Now, technology that was being developed in the 2010s, whether it's Hiring Solve, Seek Out, Hire Easy, or a reference checking platform, right? Maybe even like a video interview, right? Like basically these tools, you would buy them and you would give them to your team and it would speed things up.
Yeah.
It
To
would,
execute the process you
it would,
already.
right. And now everything that you're looking at out here pretty much to implement well, you've got to break your process. Like what we do at Tenzo, for example. I mean, it's not like you just buy it and give it to your recruiters, give it to your sourcers. It basically, now you have to get a whiteboard and get everybody into a room. These are all the tasks done by our department, and then reassign the tasks. This can now all be done by tech. So now this sourcer job actually looks like this. The recruiter job looks like this. Or maybe you don't even call them sourcer and recruiter. Maybe you call them a talent advisor, and it's a collection of things that were spread among different roles, right?
Yeah.
So you have to break your workflows now and completely rewrite the job descriptions. And I see people too often, they're not ready to do that. They want to look at new tech, but the minute they realize, oh, well, I don't just, somebody the other day told me, I want to get my team in here and see what they all think. And it's like, well, what do you mean? Like, you're going to change I'm not telling you to let go of your team, but none of them would have the same job if this were implemented fully. You would change the nature of what everyone does. And so I think that's the biggest thing for a TA leader to accept right now is transformation means rewriting every role in your department.
Yes, exactly. Because no one is going to make good decisions or truly adopt technology that makes them scared.
No, you've got to accept, and you need to lead the charge of reevaluating everything done by the department and realigning it to a role and kind of rewriting what happens.
Yeah. That's been the biggest focus for me right now. It's always been my focus. Like, I want to focus on the human part, but the books I'm reading right now, the YouTube videos I'm watching are about what makes humans uniquely human.
Mm-hmm.
Even as AI accelerates, even if it is at its highest form in which it's suggesting cures for cancer and telling us how we can generate more water in places that have never had access to water, even if it were doing that, what do we maintain as our uniqueness? What do we maintain? And that's where I think there's such an opportunity to focus on what actually matters. And that's why even when I think about the process, I love that you're talking about like, no, we're not plugging in. This is not a digital replica of everything you've ever done. This is taking the painting, the process you have right now, the metaphorical painting, right? And undoing the strokes one by one to say, do we need every single one of these to make this picture?
Yep.
And we've never been forced to do that. We have never been forced to say, does this process serve us? Does this get us where we need to be? And to me, that's where the human is needed now a lot more than we have ever been needed before. That curiosity that we valued so much in the 1% of recruiters we met in 2009 is not negotiable in 2029.
No, if you're clicking buttons is no longer going to be necessary. Like it's just the fact you've got to be thinking a little bit more abstract.
Exactly.
As we talk about this, so I think the role, as we look at this, the role of the TA leader is going to change significantly. I've seen a lot of anxiety around that. Like, I had a team of 100 doing source. You know what I'm saying? That's huge. And that was only 1/3 of the sourcing function at the organization I was in. And so when you think about that and you think about all of this technology, we all have to realize that I think the leaders, I was as far removed from the actual work as I'd ever want to be again. Do you know what I mean? I was actually getting nervous about it because, at the end of the day, you're going to need to be close to the business, and when you get too far removed, and the layers start to disappear, if you haven't been tactical enough as a leader, you're going to have a hard time.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and just statistically, if you think about the future of careers, right? There's a lot of jobs at the entry level. There are a fewer at the next level, and they just get smaller and smaller. And that nature, I think that's the natural consequence of having to manage machines that execute tasks who are applying some reasoning now, is that stack starts to shrink.
Yeah.
That people have to be more connected. And if you don't love the work, now is the time to change your career.
Oh, yeah, totally. And you ask, what would you do as a TA leader? So when I was given notification in April that, my team, they were going to decentralize and rolled them into kind of a regional structure instead of a global centralized team. And so I knew at that point that I needed to go find something. Luckily, I had a good 60-day notice. And so I started calling TA leaders that I considered, mentors and peers, just to network and see what was going on. And I was shocked, probably 30 to 40% of the people I called were like, I haven't updated my LinkedIn, but I'm actually not working. I'm between roles. And so that scared me. I was like, wow. So I started a consulting firm, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to waste time applying for jobs and competing with all of my mentors and peers. There are too many good people out applying for these jobs. So I'm just going to go find business. And um, so I started calling, and the question I would ask was, what problems are you trying to solve this quarter? And then, do you have any money for me to help you solve that? And I got 3 consulting deals pretty quick that kept the lights on. You know what I mean? So if I had to, if you're one of those TA leaders that's kind of in transition, I would not sit and apply for jobs. Go help people solve problems. Kind of the happy ending to that story. I had 3 clients. I got to know the CEO I work for now on one of those projects. You know what I'm saying? And so without looking for a job, I found a job, and that was pretty cool. So I do think, and then just observing those people who were on the sidelines, what I'm seeing, a lot of them are falling into roles with companies, and they're actually recruiting on Recs and managing small teams of 3, and they're having to, I was talking to one person who led a large recruiting team at a company that, like, you wouldn't have to explain to your grandparents. One of the, a big company, big job. And he humbly told me, you know what? I'm calling some of my senior recruiters from my last role every day for advice, because to keep my income and my livelihood, I have to be more tactical than I've been in the last 10 years. So, if you're a TA leader and you're managing a large team, those teams are inevitably going to get smaller.
Yeah.
And when that happens, you're going to have to dig into your clients more. You're going to have to get to know candidates again. You're going to have to do a lot of things you may not be doing right now. So to protect yourself, I would start leaning in deeper, get to know the engineering leaders, understand how to vet candidates for them, whatever specialty you're in, just get really close to the business.
Yep.
And learn that, because being able to execute, at a tactical level, I think is going to be even more important for all layers.
Yeah. And I think from an emotional side, the book that I just finished, The Bounce Back Factor, it's about how to navigate uncertainty with confidence. And I didn't realize kind of the timing, because I've spent the last 5 years of my life learning how to navigate uncertainty, because I grew up with 2 military parents. Okay.
That's pretty certain.
One of them is a military accountant. Like,
that's
we
very
can layer
certain.
that on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was given this model for success where all I had to do was work harder, just do the thing, hustle,
Be loyal,
put in the effort,
Mhm.
right? It was an effort-based system. And the reality is that when we don't have all the answers, when there are no sure paths, I mean, even joining the military is not a sure path to having access to healthcare for life or a pension or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really important that we don't just upskill on the tech, but we're also upskilling our ability to navigate uncertainty. And it's what you just talked about, right? It's learning to ask for help again, because most people don't default to asking for help.
No.
It's learning when to quit, when to be like, you know what? I don't need to job search anymore. I need to go make money.
Yeah.
And this is how I'm going to do it, is by calling people to make money instead of calling them and asking if they can refer me to 3 people who might be hiring for a role. Because effort, we have been trained capitalism, and I'm not going to go into like some huge argument here about capitalism, but truly we were raised in a society where effort equals outcome. And what's next? We
Mhm.
can't keep training our teams on effort equals outcome.
No, it's adaptability now.
Exactly.
You've got to learn to evolve with what's going on around you. So
Yeah, that's the nature of where we're at. Whatever comes next, you and I can sit here for 5 days and talk about what's next and still miss some
Mhm.
aspects of it. And so I guess what I'm thinking about, if I were a TA leader right now, it's like, as much as you want to be certain, practice being uncertain,
Yeah.
practice not knowing, practice saying, I'll look into it, and then being intellectually curious about problems, about process, about what you want to change, so that you don't get stuck so high up that you got nothing to do.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
My kids, I don't remember we don't cuss a lot as a family. My kids are all grown, by the way. 19, 21, 25. And
He doesn't look old enough for that.
And
if you're looking at the
so
video.
I don't remember the conversation, but they were talking about, because they knew that I was laid off, and then it didn't really change life. You know what I'm saying? And somebody, one of them was asking me about, my new job, and they're like, what, tell me the story. And I said, your dad's a scrappy mother effer. And we don't cuss a lot, but my kids just kind of laughed, and they were like, okay. They're like, okay. I mean, I was like, I don't even know. Like, there's way too much to unpack, like, about the summer and how I ended up where I am. You know what I'm saying? Like, but you gotta get that way.
Yeah.
It's not an economy, or I don't know. You go start doing. I know we've all heard too many comparisons to the Industrial Revolution, but we're there. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so you've gotta recognize the future and get on the right side of it fast.
Yes.
Otherwise, if you're counting on being the last person pushing buttons in a really big antiquated ATS, you got like 3 or 4 years
max.
So
yeah.
You gotta get more creative than that.
Yeah. So the lesson here for everybody who is waiting for the big aha is you got to be a scrappy MFer.
That's right.
That's what's up.
That's right.
As a fellow scrappy MFer,
yes.
Who also signed their very first deal at a lunch table with you, right. I want to say thank you so much for doing this interview with me and continuing to apply your intellectual curiosity to just share where you're at. And I appreciate your brain, and I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. Good talking to you.